All right, Johnversations Podcast. This is episode number 26. My guest today is an Emmy Award-winning photographer and artist living in Livermore, California. He's a corporate photographer for the Clorox Company and also the San Jose Sharks, along with being the art director for Dakota Sky Wine in Napa, California. You may know him from his amazing Instagram page or his travel company, Be a Shark. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the very talented Mr. Euan Rannachan. Euan, thank you so much for being here, man. I am so happy to have a chance to sit down with you.
No, thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
That's not a problem. I was kind of telling you a little bit before, and we'll definitely get into it, but I stumbled across your Instagram through the Daily Jaws and immediately was like, your photos are so good. I was like, I don't know if these are paintings or if they're photos. It's just incredible art. And then not to mention, I've gone to your website. I've looked at your fine art. You've got some pretty amazing self-portrait paintings on there that you've done and things like that. I mean, you're just super talented all the way around, man. So I really appreciate you being here and taking the time.
Oh, it's very kind, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's fun to share it with people, and now having kind of a bigger audience, and Instagram's helped a lot with that. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Hey, not a problem. I wanted to ask you, kind of before we kind of jump into you and how you got started and how you found your artistic and career path and things like that. But, how has everything been? I know you're in California and they've been the strictest with like the quarantine lockdowns and everything like that. So, I mean, how's life been? Are you hanging in there? Okay.
Yeah. So actually, since I was listening to your little bio, I actually moved from Livermore almost 2 years ago. We're now about an hour from Tahoe. So I'm in the foothills with land and space, and my kids. It's a pretty nice place to be quarantined up here because we have horses and dirt bikes and all that kind of stuff. So it's the best it could be, I guess. But yeah, it's a tricky situation right now. What everyone's dealing with, not only in California, obviously, or across the world, but it's been good. We've had, I think, like anyone else, it's just you got to kind of keep a positive mindset and do your part, But it's I think it's okay too to have those days where you don't feel as good, and you need those friends around you, or whether it's FaceTiming or I do a lot of that with a lot of my friends, and just kind of keep everyone in touch and make sure everyone's cool.
Yeah, man, it's I'm right there with you. I'm right outside of Nashville, and I feel like an idiot because I should have refined my research a little bit more. So
no, it's all right. I don't really talk about that too much. There's no reason for it other than the fact that I always get why'd you move out of the Bay and blah, blah, blah. And it's, honestly, it was the best thing I could have done. And I still believe that just coming out here and having space to breathe and, create art and do all that kind of stuff has just been really, beneficial in more ways than one. It's definitely given me the chance to really focus and kind of hone what I hold dear, I guess you could say, and making a better product out of it is a nice byproduct for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, man. I know how you feel. Like we're about 15 minutes from downtown Nashville, which I love being so close, but I don't know if I would love living down there. I think it's cool for a little bit, but after a while you're like, man, I want like a yard and space. And
yeah. And then I think a lot of people are going to come to that realization. I mean, Nashville is incredible. I love Nashville, but just being in such a heavily confined, heavily populated area, I'm pretty sure after all this, hopefully when all this does settle, there's going to be a lot of people are going to make a lot of changes and kind of move. And I think a lot of companies will understand that too. I've already seen that in a lot of places, working from home or whatnot. So I think as long as the internet can hold up and the infrastructure that way, then I think we shouldn't have any problem being able to do that anywhere. So
the company that I work for, I've been working from home now for probably 3 or 4 years, but we still had people that were going into the office and they've just basically come out and said, hey, guess what? This is working so well. You're not coming back to the office. Everybody's working from home now. So it feels like it's it's just a crazy time, man. I think there's going to be a lot of changes coming out that are going to, be for the better. And then I think just kind of adapt into a new way of life,
Yeah.
So you said you have kids?
Yeah, I got two boys, 4 and 7, but they both act like they're 17.
We have my daughter's about to be 2 in October. So how has it been? I mean, have you been home with them a lot more since like schools and stuff's been closed? How's that been?
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, it was daunting, I guess, for any parent. You got 2 kids, but honestly, man, like the relationship those two have formed over the last 6 months is something that's going to carry along with them for the rest of their lives. So I can't be happier about that. And the fact that when do we as adults just get to be with our kids for an extended period of time like that?
For sure.
And just being able to do stuff with them. And my wife, she works, like I said, in kind of medical research. So she's in the front lines of this right now. They're doing clinical trials for, COVID and all that. So she, poor thing, is super stressed out and, is on the phone for 9 hours a day dealing with it. So as a photographer, a lot of the stuff that I was shooting for Clorox and whatnot has kind of been put on pause. Obviously Clorox is doing just fine right now with, sanitizing and all that. So
right. Yeah, they're doing okay.
They're doing just fine. So, but it's been really, really like a weight off my back, because just knowing the company is not going to, there's going to be no, as of now, that I can see kind of any major shifts in, and in personnel and whatnot. So I've just been able to be with them. And that's another thing that actually, as of recently, I've really tried to be doing with my older son, who's 7, because, they're obviously going to remember all this, and they're absorbing it and hearing their parents talk about, scary things. It's a lot of unknowns, whether, and then, politically, all this kind of stuff that's flying around right now. So I've kind of made it a point with my 7-year-old to be like, you know what, dude, it's going to be okay. You might get it. We might all get it, but it's the kind of I don't want any kind of weird social things to come out of this for them, being so young and being separated from their friends and school and all that kind of stuff. Just try and be as normal as possible around them about it, and not inject the fear that, a lot of people get gripped by, and it can be crippling. I totally understand it. So.
Yeah, man. And I will say, it's gotta be nice. I'm the oldest of 4. So, I can imagine that if I was going through something like this at like your kid's age, because kids aren't seeing their friends right now, and I mean, here in Nashville or in Tennessee, they've opened up some schools, and then some kids day 1 have already reported COVID cases and stuff like that. So the fact that they have each other, I'm sure is very, me and my brother were 2 years apart, and I know that there was times that I wanted to kill him, but it's good to be able to have somebody, with my daughter only being 2, that's the kind of thing we've been looking at, is the good news is she's so little that maybe she won't remember this. And by the time she gets old enough to socialize, maybe things will be somewhat back to normal and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. I think it's just, and I'm too, my 4-year-old, I'm not so much worried about it. The dude is so independent as it is already. But the 7-year-old's definitely a social butterfly, and I can tell he's missing his friends, and I feel really bad about it, but he knows. And I think, like you're just, saying, without the two of them together, if it was just him on his own, I'd probably be singing a different tune.
Yeah, for sure.
As it is now, they play video games together. They swim together. They're inseparable, and it wasn't exactly like that before. So it's definitely strengthening their relationship, which is, priceless, really.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And it sounds like you may be of the same mindset as I am, where it's just that me and my wife, fortunately, we get along very, very well. We're both fortunate enough that we've been able to be home with each other, and kind of no one is carrying more of a load with the kid than the other. So I feel kind of bad for people who may not have that same level of stability, or I've talked about it before, but if you were before everything closed down, like the day before, you were in your lawyer's office talking about getting a divorce, and now it's like, saddle up, baby, 6 months to work it out, or what I mean? So,
I'll go live in the car and you can have the house kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. We'll social distance for sure. So, well, I'm glad you and the family are doing good, man. And like I said, it's such a crazy time that before we kind of talk about all of the crazy things that you do, because again, I was showing my wife, I was like, I can't believe this guy like has the guts to do what I'm seeing in these pictures. But I wanted to check in and just kind of, make sure that you guys were doing good and stuff like that.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, man. So for people who don't know, I mean, obviously, you have your corporate job, which I was really, I fell in love with your Instagram, but then kind of looking at your bio and learning about you, I was like, oh, I mean, like he does this, but then, you've won an Emmy, like you work with the San Jose Sharks. I'm originally from Detroit. So like hockey's a big deal. You know what I mean? Nice. So, I wanted to ask, looking at your bio, I noticed that you grew up in London, England, right? So it sounds like you grew up overseas for the most part.
Yeah, actually, I grew up all over the place. I was born in London. My dad's from Glasgow, Scotland, and my mom's English. But I was born in London, and then pretty much right after I was born, we moved, and we lived in New Zealand and Italy. And before I was 5, we moved around the world 3 times. So like, I was young, but I think I attribute that to being able to network now, which I love talking to people. I wouldn't say I'm a people person, which is strange, but like I think I can connect with people really quickly, which has helped me in my careers a lot. But I think the older I get, the more introverted I'm getting, just for the fact that it's the creative process. I don't like so much. People are like, what are your biggest influences? And honestly, like back in the day, sure, I had tons of them, but now as it is, like I try not to look at other people's stuff because I feel like you spend so long kind of honing your own look and not that it doesn't evolve as you get older, but and sure, I look at other people's work. I'm not saying I'm just sticking my head in the sand, but like it's more of I attribute a lot of that to my upbringing, just for the fact that my mom was an artist. She's incredible, oil and sculptor. And my dad's he's an engineer, so that's why we moved so much as a kid. But he's very technical. He's retired. He's getting into painting, which is awesome. He's doing really well at that. So I've always had kind of the art. No, I wasn't pushed into it. It was just something that was always around. There was always paint or a brush or something like that. And I was in school. It was either I was going to become some kind of athlete or I was going to become an artist. It was one of the two. Like school and we didn't gel. I loved going to school just for the fact that there was art classes and sports. So luckily I just kind of, I graduated high school in 2003. And 9/11 happened during high school, and I was like, I'm either I guess if at the time I was playing pretty competitive soccer in England, and it was one of those things where either if I don't get into school and soccer doesn't work out, then maybe I'll just join the military. Mm-hmm. And then I applied to the Academy of Art. Kind of, my mom was like, just try and apply. Both my parents, neither of them had actually gone to college. I was the first in my family to do it. And I got in the Academy of Art in San Francisco, thankfully. And kind of and I actually went there for illustration. So I was there for fine art, illustration, but doing fine art as well. And then along that process, we took a copyright class, and it was talking about, you shouldn't be, just painting people's photos. You can use stuff as reference, but all the copyright laws that go along with that, And so I knew what that word meant, but I didn't really know what it meant. And so diving into it more, I'm like, I better learn how to take these photos myself. So that in high school, I played around with cameras, but digital was kind of just coming into its own, really. I actually took a a film class and learned how to develop and all that stuff in high school. But then it wasn't until college when I really picked up a camera kind of more seriously. And then it just snowballed from there. I got asked to do someone's wedding. It was actually my wife's aunt's wedding, and that was the first one I shot. And looking back at it now, I'm just like, what the hell? Like, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, not that I don't do now, but like I was like, man, that's just it's kind of scary to think. But you kind of have to have. People ask me all the time, like, how does one start? Like, where do you start? And you obviously just got to start taking photos and figuring out what you're good at. And I also tell people they should be shooting what they want to be known for, whether you're paying your way 100%, and just, doing freebies, whatever, just get into it and get your work out there. So anyway, I wasn't really thinking I was going to become a photographer at that point, even though I started shooting weddings. At the time I was a graphic designer for Budweiser, actually. And I was making like the Bud stands and their affiliates inside the Oakland Coliseum and the arena for the Warriors and the A's and Raiders, which was a fun job, man. And it was all through college. I was doing that.
They paid you a beer.
Yeah. Dude, they hooked me up. I'm on our wedding. Like, they're just my boss. Like, yeah, just bring your truck around the back, and the dudes just hooked it up. So there was a fair bit of that. Actually, the thing I miss most about that, especially at the arena, was like I would get free concert tickets weekly. And I love music, but I wasn't going to a ton of it. But then I was. So we were going to whatever was there every week. So it was a great job. But then I kind of had reached what I could do there at the time. The next would have been probably moving somewhere else, and I didn't want to do that. So it just kind of worked out. My friend had a film company that was producing something nearby, and he had called me. It was kind of like a Roman kind of gladiator thing. And he wanted some behind the scenes photos. He asked me to come and do those. And so sure. And I went up there, and they had craft service table, and I'm walking around with my cameras, and there's a dude standing at the table, and he's just like, oh, hey, like, I have this problem with my camera. Can you talk to me about it? And I can talk about cameras until I'm blue in the face. So I was like, yeah, sure. Yap. Got to the end of the conversation, and the guy just was like, well, the event was sponsored by Hidden Valley Ranch. They had like contributed to the table, and they're actually owned by Clorox. So he was a big head up guy in the HR for Clorox, and he gave me his card, and he's like, if you're ever interested in talking with us, here's my card. And it was just perfect timing kind of thing. I emailed him the next day, and then I had an interview, and then I kind of got the job. And it's one of those jobs now, that was 2008. So I've been there for a long time. But they're an incredible company. They own so many little different brands. Like, it's the amount of stuff I've shot their NASCARs. I've shot stuff for Burt's Bees. I've shot, a plethora of stuff for them. And it's really helped evolve my career. And as a photographer, you get, that's one of the glamorous parts, I guess, if you want to call it. You get access to these places where you're just like, what is life? Like, where are we right now? What is this? So I don't take that for granted at all. And they've definitely provided, and they still do, me with the freedom kind of to continue to, push my career as much as I have, and hopefully continue to.
That's awesome, man. And I think you made a couple of really good points in what you were saying. 'Cause, when I found out my daughter was going to be born, I was like, I want to get a nice camera. I want to, everybody takes everything on their iPhone, but I want a nice camera. I want something I'm going to be able to. So I went out and, nice for me was a Nikon like D5600. You know what I mean? Nothing crazy, but I wanted to learn the manual, so I could mess with my bokeh and be like, okay, I've got her in focus, and
yeah.
But I think you make a really good point as far as like, the only way to really, kind of find your groove with it is to just like play around, because you can learn your ISO and like, okay, this is what I want my shutter speed, set at. But then after you learn what those settings do, it's really just like, that's now how do you use it?
Yeah, that's where the art takes over. It's not science anymore. It's like there's mathematically you can figure out how to do, how things should look, but at the same time, that's what I tell, and you can go to classes, you can go to school, you can do all that stuff. And like I said, I mean, they can help drill the fundamentals into what you're learning, like, design and composition and all that kind of stuff. And that is great. And I attribute a lot of that to people who say like, is it worth going to art college? And that's a very personal question, because like for some people they're extremely driven and they, the success they get later in life, they might not be able to directly tie that back to their education. And this kind of stuff, like having a master's in photography is like, who cares? Like that, I mean, you know what I mean when I say who cares? Like that's incredible if someone accomplishes that, but like that still doesn't mean that your photos are better than someone else's.
Right.
So it's like, you might know the mechanics of what's exactly happening, and you might, the fundamentals, but then like, rules are meant to be broken. So it's like, I tell people like, I still love gear. I'm a gearhead. I love, new cameras and lenses and all that, just because if you push these tools to their absolute limit, and then when innovation happens and you can do a little bit more, you're like, these things that you've thought about for years to be able to take a photo like this all of a sudden become a reality. Like it's very important, I feel like, people to try and keep up with that as much. But where it becomes a hindrance is when people use it as a crutch, or say, I can't make that because I don't have this lens, or I can't make that because I can't shoot at that kind of high frame rate, or ISO, or whatever you want to. But it's like, you can make incredible stuff with your iPhone, so it doesn't matter what you have. It's just it's a matter of being driven and focused, and like we were saying, third time now, it's like shooting what you want to shoot and shooting the hell out of it, man. Like if people, and then also capitalizing on the opportunities given to you. So if someone's like, gracious enough to let you shoot their whatever it is, like just crush it, because then word of mouth, and people, you're only really as good as the last photo you put out there. So when it comes to, you let your work kind of speak for itself. You're not there. 9 times out of 10, someone will see the photo and be like, oh, it's an amazing photo. And then if the person hears that enough, they're going to be like, oh, well, my friend took it and here's his information, kind of thing. So it's, every photo you take is almost like a business card in that aspect. So, take pride in your work, and then just do the best you can in any kind of opportunity provided. Yeah,
man. And I'm right there with you. 'Cause like, I grew up playing in bands. We got a record deal with a small indie label right after high school. And so I spent, from 19 to like 22, I was just living in a van with like 5 other dudes. But it was the same thing. It was when it came time to get new like promo shot. Because I don't know if maybe it was just being that age, but like everybody was a photographer. Everyone was like, I'll do your band's pictures. I'll do your band's pictures. And it's, you go through a couple people and you're like, oh, like, okay, like you're just someone with a camera as opposed to being. So I think you're right, where when you think of it as, hey, every picture that I'm putting out that somebody's going to see, like that's a representation of my work. I think that's a good mindset to have, because you kind of set yourself up to never put something out that like I know a lot of bands and people that have just kind of rush songs out, and then they're like, oh man, I wish I would have done this differently, or this would have been so much cooler if I did this. But to hold yourself to that standard, to be like, no, if someone's going to see this, it's going to be exactly the way that I want it to be, I think is the right kind of mindset to have.
And I think you find too, as you're developing your kind of look and style and all that you'll change something and you'll get really excited about it, and then you'll put out a bunch of stuff. And then, as you go along, like now for me, like I tend to, I still shoot a ton, but I don't put out as much anymore. And there's a couple guys like, one of my good buddies, his name's Mike Coots. He's a famous photographer. He's a surfer. He's a shark conservationist. He actually had his leg taken off by a tiger shark. But the dude's like, he still surfs. He's an incredible, he shoots with me, shoots white sharks with me all the time. But he told me like, we have an obligation to these animals now, kind of thing. So I take my shark stuff way more seriously than I probably ever have. And just for the fact that I know we're going to probably get into this in a little bit, but I was just saying, like, I use it as an example to, like, with that now, I put out an image every day on Instagram, which is hard enough to do. But also, like, making sure that image is different, but also in my style. So it's and Instagram's can be its own worst enemy. I mean, I love it for, the amount of people that can see it and how it gets its work out. But man, like, social media in general, you know how it goes. It's like it's a love-hate relationship. So, but it's a good way to keep yourself accountable. I guess that's the best way to say it, especially in your own work. So now I find myself, when I go to put it in, I'm like, am I proud of that? Like, is that just a filler? Like you're saying, am I rushing to put that thing out there? Or is that like, am I happy with that? And as Mike told me, he's like, sometimes I don't put out an image for weeks until I really get something that I'm really happy with. And I mean, he can do that because he's a baller, but I still feel like I get to go so much, and I really enjoy trying to help educate people on just how I see sharks and all the rest of it. So, but it was a good kind of representation of, here's a dude with, I think he's got 250,000 followers or whatever it is. And he's like, I'm not worried about putting something out every day. I'm worried about putting out, what I want people to see, and make sure it's, exactly how I want them to see it before I do it. So yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Well, yeah, I think that's super interesting. And I'm kind of right there with you as far as like, look, like if I don't think it's ready, like let's not put it out. And as far as the Instagram goes, because again, obviously what you and I do are two totally separate things. My thing on Instagram is just I'm sitting in my house and I get to talk to people that I find interesting. But I'm right there with you as far as like Instagram and like the social media work. That's the stuff that kind of feels like the job aspect. It's like, sure. This is like, oh, I could do this all day if I could just talk to people. But then it's like, okay, well now I got to take this clip and I got to, and I like learning how to do that stuff, but it's just a way to promote the thing that I actually have the passion for. So sure. Do you ever find yourself just being like, do you ever have that? Because there's sometimes where I'm just kind of like, fuck it, man. Like if people want to listen to it, they'll find it. I'm not, putting the time in. Do you ever battle that yourself?
Daily. And I think honestly separating myself and coming up here like we did with, just space and room to breathe and stuff really drilled that, what you just said, home. Just for the fact is it's very difficult to get caught up in, hold on a sec. My kid's running in. Oh, okay. It's my brother-in-law. Sorry. I think day to day, usually it was like, in the Bay Area itself, it's hectic, man. Like you're trying to, you're not trying to one up the people around you, but you're kind of held to that. Like it would take me sometimes an hour to drive half a mile. Like it's ridiculous. Like there's just so many people and everyone's so busy and they don't have time for themselves or time for others. And they're very selfish and all the rest. And that's just, and it's not, I don't think it's their fault. I just think it's the culture that, the immediateness. You need to see this right now. I need to see what's the newest thing. What's the next thing on Netflix? Like what can I ingest and put in my eyeballs? So for me, it's been a real cool experience to be just away from it all and being able to be like, what do I want to create right now? Or what do I want to show people and how do I want to show it? And just like, it's literal and figurative, the space, like it's giving me that like kind of breathing room. So yeah, I do find that And with this COVID stuff, like, you open your phone and you just start scrolling and you can just like feel the negativity and just like that.
That's terrible.
Oh man. Like I would like to think that I'm a pretty positive person. Like I actually made a couple years ago, I made a pact with myself. Well, I made it out loud. It's like one of those like 4th of July, New Year's Eve resolution things where you're like, what are you? And I was like, I'm only going to be positive online. Like I'm not that I was getting tangled up with trolls or whatnot, but like I'm only going to put out positive shit. Like I'm in anything, whether it's Facebook or anything. Like it's, I'm going to just take the upper road, like the higher road. And it really helped. And I've actually had a lot of people tell me, like, I really appreciate, like, whether it doesn't have to be like all gushy and stuff, but like just stuff that inspires me, or the shit that you want to look at on your face, your timeline or your feed, you want to see these things. So I made it a point to like, I'm not going to bitch and moan about anything. And I'm just going to post stuff that either inspires me or I think's cool or I've created or something like that, or friends created or whatever it is. And that's really helped. But I've definitely found lately that, it's really easy, obviously, to be negative in these circumstances. And it's like, dude, that's the last thing we should be doing right now. Like we need to be like grabbing each other by the scruff of our necks and pulling each other up. Like we need to constantly be on that. Sure. So it's like, being an artist in this situation is you could look at it one of two ways. It can be very damning because you feel like, how am I going to get inspired when I'm stuck in my house all day? But also it's an amazing exercise in creativity itself. Like you can find new things to shoot and new ways to do it and practice. And I set up a little thing out my window. I have these hummingbirds that come to this nest next to I made a feeder. And I was like, I would love to like get some really high resolution, like really close in on their face photos. And so I just sat for like 2 weeks just by my window when I had time, and I was just snapping these photos of these birds, and people got really excited about it. And I was like, it's cool. I'm glad you guys are, but like, I really do this for me. And it was like it was amazing practice because they're really hard to focus on. So it was great for shark stuff. Like it kept that, but it was scratching an itch that otherwise I would have had to do somewhere else. And I just can't right now, obviously, for all these reasons. So, yeah, I guess that comes down to kind of, work ethic and all the rest, especially in these fields. Like you just gotta keep going, man. I have this other analogy. I tell a lot of people that like, I felt like for years I was pushing a ball up a hill, and I got to a certain part where it's not like the top of your career, but the ball started rolling down the hill the other way. And I'm now left trying to catch up and keep up with that ball, whether it's the next foot or the next thing to push out. But the anxiety can grow, obviously, the further that ball gets ahead of you. So it's I kind of contradicted myself with like coming up here and being alone, but I definitely had to fight that for a while, being like, what the hell? Like people, am I shooting myself in the foot by completely secluding myself? But I think it's been the other way around. I mean, luckily I get to go and play with sharks a couple times a year, and that's definitely helpful. But I've got into 3D printing. Like I made those giant jaws in the background back there.
That's badass, man. I think that's the first thing that I have a thing on social media kind of very similar, at least on Instagram, where like if I find something that I think is cool, like the first thing I want to do is share it so that other people can see it. Yeah. And when I found the Daily Jaws, that's how I came across. They were doing a piece, I think, on your sculpture that you did, and I was just like, this is fucking awesome. So I was just like, share it. I want everybody that I know to see this because I just thought it was so cool.
That's awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. But that's another example of just something to keep. I've like always wanted those, and I looked, and I don't want real jaws. I don't want sharks to have to suffer for what I want on my wall. That's part of my whole thing. So it's like I started getting into 3D printing a couple years ago, and it's like almost 2 years now. And so I actually got into it because I wanted a cool head coming out of the wall, like a big white shark head coming out of the wall, and I did that. It's around the corner, but I'd always, wanted a life size, because it's hard to, people see these, I have huge photos in my office of like all over these sharks that I've taken. And it's cool because I printed them pretty much life size. So people can go like, wow, this is like really, but it's until you really, that's next to actually being in the water with them. It gives you a good sense of like the scale of these animals and stuff. So, So I was like, oh, well, I looked up, like, what is a good reproduction cost? And dude, it's like 10 grand. And I'm just like, no, that's crazy money.
Yeah, let
that's
me buy the machine. I'll do it myself.
So that's what I ended up, I did. And the machines, it was only like $250. I mean, there's probably about $100 material. It is plastic, which is a bummer. Like, I wish there was a better way of creating that stuff on there. But like 3D printing itself has just opened up this massive world. I make stuff on there all the time for people. And, it's amazing to have, like, you open up SketchUp, a free program from Google, and in 30 minutes you can have a good model that you can then put through, and then a couple hours later you have your prototype made in plastic right in front of you. Like, it's amazing. We live in the future.
Yeah, man. It's like Jetson stuff. And like, yeah. And I mean, I know, like, being made of plastic is definitely probably not the material, but the good news is, like, if the kids are ever playing in there and that falls and drops, it's like, oh, well, it doesn't cost me an arm and a leg to, I just reprint it, repaint it, kind of make it, that's all. And I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I think through your work, I mean, before we even got the opportunity to sit down and talk, I definitely was like, okay, Euan is a guy who appreciates nature in, like, its rare form. You know what I mean? Because, like, I can't imagine somebody devoting the time, and I mean, frankly, man, like, I think I would be shitting my pants even if I was in one of those cages. I feel like
this is the common misconception. This is the thing that's why half the reason we started the company, we did taking people out to the island to dive with these animals. It's just for the fact that, people are scared of them, and it's I get it. Like, they're apex predators. There's a reason they're an apex predator. And when you see them, going after bait and stuff, you're like, yeah, that's scary. But at the same time, they're an apex predator that you can be within, like, dude, sometimes their eyeball is like my eyeball, their eyeball. Like, I'm that close to a, 17, 18 foot white shark, and I can see them watching me. But they're not interested in eating us at all. And I've spent hundreds of hours now in the water with them. And, like, I've never felt scared. Everyone goes, have you ever had any close calls? And sure, like, they've banged in the cages, and, we've had those kind of things, but they're there without us, whether we're there or not, they're there. They're there for these. So a little bit about the island itself. It's island of Guadalupe. It's 250 miles off the coast of Mexico. It's the most westerly point in Mexico you can get. And it's a migration path for elephant seals, fur seals, and California seals, sea lions. And it's just like the beach. So it's like this amazing, it looks like Jurassic Park. That's what I tell people. I'm like, if you can imagine a place where great white sharks would be, this is exactly what you would imagine. Like, it's Kong Island, these giant megalith, huge rocks, looks like shark teeth, jagged coming out of the water. It's this old volcanic island. There's a tiny little fishing village on the opposite side, and then on the southern point there's a naval base, Mexican naval base. But other than that, it's completely the island is just bare. But these beaches, it's like a seal nursery. When you get up close to it, you can just see all these tiny little baby seals all over, and they're super cute. But they're just shark burritos, like, from start to finish. And it's
shark
really
Chipotle.
They're just like, sweet, like, extra hair on that one,
right?
So it's really deep right there. So the seals will come in and out, and it's like ideal conditions for white sharks, predations, looking up and then coming straight up. So that's how we put these giant chunks of tuna. So there's yellowfin tuna out there too. They'll eat but they're there mainly for these seals. And scientists believe they either go there and have one last meal before giving birth, or going out and making babies somewhere around there. They actually have never filmed white sharks giving birth or mating. They know how they do it.
Do they think it's because they go down, like, I mean, it's like, with them not being able to capture it, is it because, like, do they go down further than, like,
they don't know. They don't really know. So from tagging, they know. So the males come up and they actually bite the females in the gills, and they hold on to them. It's pretty gnarly. So a lot of the females, you'll see these huge, massive bite wounds on their sides. And so the males latch onto them, and then their dicks are called claspers, and they have two of them. And so they can go either side. And so they kind of latch onto the female, and then they do this, my friend calls it the death spiral. So they start at the surface, and then so white sharks have to have water going over their gills at all times to breathe. So as the male's holding onto the female, they spiral down, and then they break away and they come up to the surface. And they said from reading tags, apparently, that they think they continuously do this until it happens. But the reason they haven't filmed it, I mean, I've heard a lot of stuff. There's this thing called the Shark. It's the Shark Cafe, and it's like somewhere in the middle Pacific. And they know this because they've tagged all these sharks, and they end up in this kind of general vicinity, which is, they don't know why they do it. They don't know what really brings them there, but they think this is where they're making babies. There's other places they think there are nurseries. So this is where they have the babies, because they see, like Sea Cortez, I think, is some. They're thinking maybe there's one close to the West Coast here in California. Okay. So anyway, we don't know, but they see these tags and they see them kind of doing these spirally things, and so that's how they've kind of come to that conclusion from what I've been told. But
yeah,
this
so
island,
like they're like brawling it out to get it done.
Yeah. I mean, they're so, like, I tell people this too. They're like, they're an apex predator, like I just said a minute ago, but like, they're the only apex predator in the world that you can spend that much time with that closely and be completely fine. Like, you can't walk into a lion's den and do this. You can't go to can't go pet a tiger on the head. Like, it's just that doesn't happen. So they're very intelligent animals. They know what they want. They conserve their energy. They're 98% of the time, they're moving really slowly, very aerodynamic, not making any movements they don't have to. And then obviously they turn it on and act like Ferraris when they're after something. But they're all cartilage, so they're super bendy. So they don't like touching each other. You'll see them like shying away from each other. They have it's called the lateral line that runs down the sides of the shark, and it feels, they're really superhuman, like, it's not human, they're superheroes. They have these sensors that can feel impulses. They can feel your heart beating in the water in front of you. Everyone knows they can smell blood in the water from, miles out.
Miles and miles, yeah.
So they're just like, we have a lot to learn from these amazing animals, and like, let alone their tissue regenerative properties. They're studying right now for cancer research because, like I said, the males come and bite the females and do these huge lacerations and massive gashes on them. And then we'll see them the next year and it looks like nothing at all has happened. Whereas you and I would be scarred for life.
Yeah.
They find a way to heal themselves really quickly, which is incredible.
Well, yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I've also heard that, they catch a bad rap, because I know you're spending most of your time with white sharks, and I know that, they catch a bad rap for like biting people and things like that. But from what I understand, the majority of the time, if a white shark actually does bite you, it's because it thinks you're like a seal or, a tuna or something like that. They're not out, they're not out. And I definitely correct me if I'm wrong, if you know this, but I've from what I understand, like, they'll bite to see if that's what it is. And then if it's not that, then they're like, well, I'm not going to eat you. But their bite is so big that, like, if they take a nibble, like, you lose a leg, essentially.
Yeah, so no, it's exactly right. They use their teeth almost as fingers. Like, I wish they had hands, because no one would have any problems with them. But like, they use their teeth as fingers, and that, their bite force is, I can never remember the figure it is, but it's one of the most pound per square inch bites, like fierce bites in all the world, and animal wise. But it's they take up to 50 pounds every time they take a massive bite. So that's, and it's the bite force is just, there's a couple of videos on my Instagram that show that really well. There's this one shot I call zombie shark, because he's just bitten the bait, and it's still got the membrane over his eyes that comes over to protect them. And it looks crazy. But like, when that shark did that, it was like maybe 4 feet in front of me, right in front of me. It was a big shark. It's had his mouth wide open, and it's literally, I was shooting at 120 frames on my GoPro that sits on top of my camera housing. And I mean, usually with that, you get a couple good, in slow motion, but literally it looks like it's just fast in slow motion too. Like their speed is just, it's pretty gnarly. Like
well, and especially for being, I mean, the thing, they're fucking dinosaurs. Like they're to be that big and that lumbering, but then to also be like just so quick when they're going after something is insane.
It is. And that never wears off. Like, people go like, do you need to go again? Like, have you seen, like, I'm like, dude, if I could be every day in the water with them, like something different happens every time you get in the water. You see something different. You have a different experience. I was kind of alluding to this earlier where like, I love taking people who, cause sharks are either people love them, or they hate them. There's really no like, sharks, but like it's either like, oh, I'm terrified of that, or and a lot of times when people are scared of them, they're also very intrigued by them. They want to know more about them, or they're like, oh, I'd never do that, but like, oh my god, I want to watch Jaws 50 times. Like they love the shark, but they're just terrible. And so like those are the most fun people to go with, because there's this rewiring in their brain that happens. It seems like, the cage door opens and it's like makes this ominous kind of clanging noise. And there's I call them meat submarines. So the giant fucking shark swims past you and you're just like, oh my God, like everything in your body is being like, no, I don't need to get in there. Like they're making margaritas over there. They're like, I'm just going to go sit up top and watch. Like, but as soon as they get in the water, there's this thing that happens where they just like, they see these sharks doing their thing as they've done for, God knows how long, and don't care about them, but they just watch them kind of interact with these things, and they get out. And like, it's, some people, they devour that information differently, where sometimes it manifests in tears or, whatever it is, but it's happy tears. It's like, it's this thing that they've been like, I always say, like, it's what else are you saying no to in your life? You're like, there's no way I'm going to get in the water with these animals. And then people do it and you're just like, see? And they're like, what do you want to do? Like, I want to get back in. Like, I want to be in there more. Like, and then later when they're able to kind of really digest what's happened, it's this amazing kind of, I don't know if you want to call it an awakening or like self-awakening, where you're just like, what else have I been pigeonholing myself from doing because I couldn't, I thought it'd be too scary, or I thought, oh, it's impossible, I can't do that. So it's like, even if you're never going to dive with white sharks again, it's like, it's one of those few things in life that you can do. Everyone always says, oh, this is a bucket list thing. Like, oh, it's a bucket list. I want to, it's one of those few things in this life that you can actually do. Like, you can go drive a Ferrari on a racetrack, or you can go do something adventurous, but like, this is something that you could really do, where you're like, I would be so scared to do this. And then when you do it, you're just like, man, that was one of the cool, if not the coolest experience of my life. And it's amazing to be around. I'm lucky enough to do this enough that I get to share that experience with them, because it's just as exhilarating for me when it happens to them, because It's like, it's a real moment. You're having a real moment with real things. It's not something you're seeing through a screen or your friends telling you about. You're like, you just did it. And I'm like, I know, I'm standing right there next to you. It's incredible.
Right. We did it together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's gotta be a cool thing too, because like, obviously like you had some kind of, I'm not a very religious person, and I try not to use things like spiritual, because I feel like it's always like, kind of like the hippy dippy, like, oh, I'm so spiritual, man. But like, there's got to be like a connection with the universe in that moment. Because we went to Dauphin Island before all crazy COVID happened. We were fishing on the beach, and we caught a shark that was maybe a foot and a half long, and even like being close to that thing, you're like, damn, like, dude, this is gnarly. You know what I mean? Like you can take your toes off. This thing is, for being so, it's crazy to be like, you're so small, but you could, like, you, even being at that size, you have more power, I think, than you can wrap your head around. You know what I mean?
Well, and the fact that these things just are doing this with us, with or without us. Like, they're not putting on a show. This is them surviving. This is them eating, And it's like, I get another thing a lot of people say is like, I can't believe I share the world with these things. Like, they're real. That's real. Like, I get that a lot of my photos. Like, that's a real photo. I'm like, yeah, I mess with the light a little bit and, change the colors up how I like. And that's how I, put my spin on it. But that's a real photo. Like, that's what they do.
Yeah, you were in that moment.
That's what,
Yeah, you were in that moment taking that picture.
I definitely saw it.
Well, it's like...
Yep.
I don't know, man. It's intense because like my thing is like the white sharks. I don't think have ever. I mean, I love Jaws. I mean, I watched it just the other day. It's on HBO, so I watched it whenever it's on. I'm like, let me sit down and watch it because I fucking love that movie. It's so good. But the white sharks aren't ever the ones that I actually have like a fear of. I think I would just be intimidated because they're such massive creatures, like being almost like I think as humans we're like, oh, we're powerful, like we can like think and we're we walk around and but when you're put up next to something that could be like, no, if I wanted to just destroy you, you know what I mean? Like,
that's a cute little cager in right there. I'll just give it one giant whack of my tail. You think you're safe in there, but like that's it's like you said just a minute ago, it definitely shows you just how small you are in all aspects as soon as you get to that island. But yeah, I think they just get such a bad rap. And it's interesting. I don't know if you've been seeing all these attacks. Like seems like a lot more attacks lately all of a sudden. But it's and I was listening to a scientist or a marine biologist talking about it lately, and he's like, it's they're with the lack of people going to beaches and whether COVID or whatnot, all these restrictions, the sharks they're coming closer and closer into their fishery areas. People always say like, oh, this shark infested water. I'm like, you mean like their home, like the ocean like water they live in? Like they're allowed to go wherever you want.
This human infested house that I went into.
So it's like, oh. Honestly, I don't know why. Like people just love saying like it was shark infested. It's like, no, that's just it was a target-rich environment that you went into. So they're coming closer and closer, and then they're getting confused when there's like a single surfer out or whatnot, and they see the silhouette. So and then a lot of the attacks, like I was saying a minute ago, they don't have hands or they can't feel, so they're feeling with their mouth. That's why a lot of times you see the boards just with the little bite mark in it. So that's literally like it's just gone, nope, not the right thing, and just taking his teeth back out. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of and it's a shitty thing right now we're dealing with at Guadalupe. So the Mexican government hasn't opened the island. They haven't opened the national parks. Obviously the border's shut. For some reason you can still go to Cabo and Tulum. You can fly there from the States, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But so with the border being shut, we can't bring people to the island, and they're not running tours there, which, obviously it's a massive bummer for everyone involved. But really the scariest part about that is, I'm not sure if you've been seeing any of the stuff that's happening down in the Galapagos Islands right now, but these sanctuaries are being destroyed by these Chinese fisheries.
No, I didn't know.
They're coming in and just decimating the bad right now. And there's terrifying photos. You just see they all gang up, and they have like each boat has like 2.5 million hooks that they try and trawl with, and they're killing a lot of fish. So that's another thing. But at Guadalupe, we've always been worried about if we're not there. Like if they had a ban, if they put a ban on cage diving with these guys and doing all that. Right now, we're essentially, we bring researchers out there. There's usually always one on our boat. We have, there's a lot of rules that come along with it. You're not allowed to stick your arms out. You're not obviously feeding the sharks. We're not trying to let the sharks get the bait. We have these professional wranglers that go off the side. Crazy Louis, shout out. He's the best in the entire world. But like bringing the bait in, and so like it's pretty heavily regulated, which it should be, because you want to be as respectful to the animals as we can be. We're just flies on a wall, just witnessing kind of thing. But without us being there, it kind of opens the door for a lot of just horrible stuff to happen. And I just read an article this morning, marine biologist saying they're really worried what's happening in Galapagos is going to happen in Guadalupe, which dude, I can't even put myself in that. Like if they went there and they killed all those sharks, they're going to have a lot more to worry about than like, I don't know what's going to happen, but
yeah. And I mean, I think for people who are listening, who may have never been, like, it may be hard for people to understand like the emotional connection that you would have with a place like that. You know what I mean? But it's like, I really think it's, and I'm hoping, I've been telling my wife, but once all this COVID stuff is done, if I make a trip out to California, I'll be like, hey man, I got your number. Let's hit this fucking boat. But, cause I think you're right. It's like, you challenge yourself, you know what I mean? Like, and that's not an experience I think you get very often. It's not like being here in Nashville. There's a tons of chances to get face to face with sharks in that same way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really hoping that doesn't happen, because it sounds like a beautiful place. And I mean, is there anything that, like, for people who are listening, or, is there like a fund you can donate to or anything like that to, try to, or is it just kind of, there's
a lot of white shark.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I think to educate yourself about, there's a lot of conservation happening right now around white sharks. The funny thing is, the white sharks on the East Coast get a lot more attention than they do on the West Coast, and we arguably have some of the bigger sharks in the world that come to this island. And there's a lot of stuff. Not that they aren't researching. There's obviously Monterey Bay Aquarium has a really good white shark research. There's a lot. MCI, we help with all our photos. We donate to shark IDing. So like there's over 300 getting close to 350 individual sharks now that we see on a regular basis. I have a couple all over my arms, and like these guys are like near and dear to my heart. And I know all these guys. But it's pretty amazing when you're in the water with these animals, and you can, like, when one swims past and I know its markings, I know exactly. Some I can see off in the distance, and I've been in the water with them so much now that I know who it is kind of coming in.
Like, hey,
and
Jeff.
Even with that, like, knowing pretty much, Rhett, this guy on my forearm, he eats seagulls constantly. So if you see a seagull's feet in the water above it, and then I see Rhett in the feet, like, I just focus on the seagull immediately, because I'm like, the seagull is about to get it. I'm just going to watch this happen right now. But
that's awesome.
That's what I was about to say. Like, their characteristics shine through, and you start, like, I know, like, this guy's going to come close, and she doesn't like coming close, but she'll stay away and go for the bait. And like, there's these kind of things you can almost set your watch to. I mean, each day is different. You don't know if they're hungry or not, or what they're going to do. But when you start something called Doug, which I think is a really funny name for a white shark, but like in the book, he's named Doug. And he constantly puts his head in stuff. And another one called Mace literally, he had a bite mark all the way around his head. So he'd put his head in another shark's mouth, like to look around in there or whatever he's done. The shark put him there. And he had like 5 tags on his back, because he always wants to come in for a good look. He's just like very inquisitive shark, and they just tagged him. So he had like, I saw him one day, he was completely clean. Next day he came back, he had like 5 tags in his dorsal fin and a big ring around his head. So he'd had a bad day the day before, but.
Well, it's like almost like they're kids, almost like,
yeah.
Like I could, like it's like the little kid, like touching the oven because they don't know it's hot,
Yeah. Yep. He's definitely like that. Yeah, no, they're special animals, and that it's like I said though, you can't go and share that kind of confined space with other apex predators. So to be able to do that, it's definitely not lost on me. Like it's. I'm lucky that we have 3 trips. Well, we had 3 trips. There's obviously this August one's got canceled, but we have one next month and the one following. That's usually what we do. So the window is open to dive with them from it's usually August to end like mid-November, and that's when you can go to the island. The sharks are there year round, but that's the time that we're allowed. That's like the best conditions too to be out there. Excuse me, and so. Yeah, it's there's really not a bad side. And some rule of thumb in the beginning of the year, it's usually the smaller kind of agile younger sharks. And as you progress through the time period, the bigger ones kind of show up later on usually. Some sharks actually, they do odd even years. So some sharks will only show up on odd years and others the even years, which is kind of crazy. This year is actually when the big females are supposed to show up. So everyone's like, God, we want to be the end because the massive ones come through usually this year. Yeah, it's a special spot, dude, for sure.
Well, I mean, I can imagine, like, because you said you run what, August through November.
Yeah, our last trip is October, but they do in November as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I can imagine, like, from like November to July, you're just like, come on, man, like let me.
We go through.
I can't wait.
We go through, but I mean, luckily I take on an average trip. Yeah, I mean, I've taken up to 9,000 frames before in 3 dives. So like, there's a lot to go through. Obviously, not all those get used, but you know, we laugh. My business partner Nikki, she's incredible photographer. You guys should check her out too.
Nick in a Cage on Instagram too. If anybody's listening,
bingo. She's rad. She's been doing it. You think I'm shark crazy? She's the be all end all. You can ask her, and she helps actually ID the shark. So she helps with getting the photos together and then helping to. And you can actually you're actually allowed to name them. It costs some money. You have to have a photo of both the sides, and if the shark's not in the book, you get to name it. But sometimes, if you're really lucky and you donate enough, they'll let you name one every once in a while. And actually, I just got notified that I've been trying to get them. I want to name them after my boys. So my nickname for my oldest is Cheeks. That's his name. And so finally, I just got told that I get to name. Well, a shark has now been named Cheeks after him. So it's
That's awesome.
In the book, it's called Cheeks now, which I'm pretty stoked about. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, my we call my daughter Moo. So I mean, maybe me and the wife start saving up.
There you go.
Well, yeah, I did want to ask you this too, because you know we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but like from people having that fear, I did read an interview that you had given where in the interview it said that you know you saw Jaws when you were a kid and that kind of like lit the fire a little bit. Is there I mean, you know, I don't know if it's just something that the interviewer was kind of like, oh, well, this sounds cooler. I mean, is there any legitimacy? Because you would imagine like, oh, he's out there taking pictures of sharks. He must fucking love Jaws. You know what I mean? So
right. It's. I mean, that's like the first question that like if like. Luckily, I had a photo that kind of resembled the Jaws photo going up, like the movie poster, and that it went viral a couple years ago, and it was great because it gave me a bunch of exposure. But you know, obviously, that's the first question everyone asks is like, "Oh, do you love Jaws?" And yeah, I love Jaws. It's a great movie. And as a kid, I did see it. It wasn't the thing that spurred me on to doing it. It was just kind of like I'd always loved. I mean, I have hawks on my arm, like birds of prey I love, and you know, just big animals. They're awesome. It's hard to find a kid who wouldn't be excited about any of that kind of stuff. But you know, sharks, I definitely always kind of gravitated more towards marine stuff, and sharks in general, and white sharks just because they were the biggest ones I got excited about. But it wasn't really until just after I'd come out of college and I'd seen this Dutch photographer, and I wish I knew his name because this is a cool story, and I wish I could thank him now for what he's done. But he had these black and white photos of white sharks that were more artistic. And like I tell a lot of people, like I'm not a marine biologist, I'm not a scientist. Just through years of doing this and being excited about the animals, like I've educated myself quite a lot about them. But it's just been a byproduct of what I've done. So I tell everyone that like my photos are more meant for art and for people who love sharks and just want to see them. They're not your, you know, sometimes I'll do crazy things with the color of the water or the color of the shark and all that. And you're like, why is the shark that color? I'm like, just because I wanted it to be like, that's just what I saw at the time. So as an artist, you're allowed to do those kind of things. But, so my photos tend to be that way. Sorry, I forgot what you asked me. What was the question?
We were talking about Jaws, and you said that
Jaws.
Yeah.
Sorry. So yes, it wasn't until I had seen these black and white photos of this guy had taken, and he was like I said, he was a Dutch photographer. And I sent him an email, and he had like his website looked like he was pretty well established. I'm like, I'm probably never going to hear from this guy again. And he sent me an email back pretty much like 10 minutes later, and it was like, this is the boat you need to go on. This is the captain. This is the crew. This is like Guadalupe, this island. You have to go with these guys.
I'm still here with you. My camera dropped out, but I'm still here.
Okay. That's all right. And so I was like, all right, cool. So I sent the guy. He said, get in contact with this guy named Dean Carr, and he'll hook you up on what to do and who to go with. So I was like, okay, fine. So I did that, and come to find out that Dean is he's a really famous music video producer down in Hollywood, and like super awesome dude. I call him Granddaddy Shark now because he still goes out to the island and does his thing, and his photos are incredible. Everyone should check his stuff out too. But you've already seen his work. Like he shot the cover of from everyone from like 9 Inch Nails, Dave Matthews Band, like Three Doors Down. You know that Three Doors Down cover with the baby sitting on top of the table with the mohawk and all the fruit? You remember?
Yeah.
It was like really. He took that photo in his living room. He made Marilyn Manson's music videos. The dude's just like an icon. So he called me, and he's like in typical Dean style. He's like, "What's up, brother? Yeah, we're going to go see the Sharks." And like, I was like, this sounds awesome. At the time, I just got married and we were buying our first house, and I just couldn't afford it. But I kept up with him until finally I was able to go. And then kind of as soon as I did it the first time, like, I have to do this multiple times a year. Like I can't, this is a thing. So, but it's very challenging shooting under the water, man. Like compared to other photography, like I've done a lot of different kinds of photography, but it's definitely, it is the hardest because within minutes you can have a fog come through and just completely ruin all the settings. You know, and it's not as easy as just taking a camera off your face and adjusting. I personally use a dive housing, so
yeah, so you've got like big. You're holding it two hands, and right? Isn't it like it's like you've got like a giant unit that you're using down there, not just like let me point and shoot kind of thing. It's pretty big.
So mine's stripped down quite a bit just for that fact that you don't have a ton of room in the cages. A lot of people have the full-on, they're called like dive housings. So they're meant for like scuba diving, and they have, you can put arms on them for strobes and stuff. And they're way more bulky. But with those, you get a ton more, like you can access all your buttons everywhere, all over in the front and back side of the camera. Whereas my housing, it's made by a company called Aquatech, which is a fantastic, I'm not sponsored through them, but they're dope. They make really nice stuff. And they're American, it's an American company. Made here, and they up in the surf. Actually, I don't know if it's an American company before I say that. Anyway, whatever.
We'll just say they are. They are.
Sure, cool.
If they weren't, they are now.
Yeah, an American uses them. Right. But they're meant for like surf photography. So they if they get dropped or they hit the surf or whatever happens, like they can take a beating. So anyway, the main reason I use those things is from shooting a lot of sports with like the San Jose Sharks and all the rest. I'm used to using, longer lenses, more sport lenses. So I kind of brought that into the cage with me. A lot of underwater photographers shoot really wide. You kind of set your focal length for 8-10 feet in front of you. And then you shoot really wide, and you get, you'll get the shark and you'll get everything that's happening in the scene, and it's awesome. But like I was saying earlier, I tend to try and set myself apart, I immediately try to use more like action sports lenses, stuff that'll give me a little bit more reach and more compression. So it's more cinematic when you see the images and stuff. And I think that actually has definitely helped in my favor, kind of to automatically just through the composition set me apart from the others. And then just the kind of the color grading I do and focusing or forcing people to look at certain areas that they might not otherwise. has definitely helped in the edit afterwards. But I feel like using a surf housing in the cage and then using the lenses that I would usually use to shoot kind of action sports or something like that, maybe photojournalistic style, has definitely helped.
Well, and I will say that's one thing that I think really stands out about the photos that you take. And yeah, I think a lot of people are used to, especially when you're thinking about like nature shots, like sharks or, like elephants or something like that. You're used to seeing them almost presented like the National Geographic, like these are the animals in the Sahara and the natural, you know what I mean? But when you're taking those photos, you can tell that you're coming at it from, you're documenting, but you're also coming at it from an artistic standpoint where you're like, I want this photo to be just as interesting to look at as it is kind of showing people the beauty of these giant animals. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. At least that's how I feel when I came. And I think that's something that drew me to your Instagram was I was like, man, like these sharks are awesome, but the pictures just look, dude, they're out there, man. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. Like, you watch it and you're just like, man, this shit is insanely cool looking.
I work really hard at it, so I love hearing that. I really appreciate it. And that's actually one of the most rewarding things I get messages a lot of times, just people like, I love your photos of sharks. Like, I think they're different. And that's probably the best compliment I can receive, just for the fact that that's exactly what I'm trying to do. So, and it's, everyone loves a giant, big open mouth, like big toothy photo. It's awesome. And it's just, when you look at kind of how people, what people like on my Instagram, obviously those are the ones that get hit up the most, but I try and make the other ones just as spectacular, because they are, when, these massive animals come through and the way the light comes through the water, sometimes at Guadalupe, it's arguably the best place to photograph these animals, just because the water clarity is so incredible. Like South Africa, obviously we get more, aerials and stuff and cool stuff that happens there, and giant sharks as well. But the water viz isn't very good, to the point where you have to put your head above the cage and then all of a sudden a spotter up top be like, there's a shark, and you dive down and you might get a quick glance if it's close enough, kind of thing. So. And you're getting thrown away. There's nothing worse than getting seasick inside of a cage 10 feet underneath the water and throwing it through your regulator. Like, it's not fun at all. And then sharing that regulator with someone else who's coming on after you.
You need this.
Yeah. Just like, what is
yeah, my wife and I went on a cruise for our honeymoon. It was the first time that either one of us went, and we were both like, the first day we're like, if we feel like this the whole time, this is gonna fucking suck. And no. We got used to it. The first night, for some reason, was like, and we were in Mexico. We went to Cozumel and then we went to Yucatan. But nice. we were just like
sea legs.
Yeah, the first night was really, really choppy, and then after that, it kind of smoothed out and you couldn't really feel it. But yeah, that first night, we're just like, this is what the whole week is going to be like. We're both fucked. This is awful.
Yeah, so that's another kind of hidden gem with these trips. Is the trip out there is it's the grueling part. And I tell everyone this, it makes the island that much better when you get there, because we actually anchor in a crater of the volcano. So it's really deep, but the water is very still and you're protected from the open ocean. You can literally, as you're steaming into the island, you see the line and where the crazy swells going on here. And it's literally, there's like a line and it's just completely flat where we go. So, but that crossing can take up to 26 hours sometimes. It's usually about 18 or 19 hours, but depending on the wind and whatever you're dealing with, it can be a long time. And it can be quite rough because it's open ocean, you're going through, and the boats are big, but so is the ocean. So it's like these swells that come through can be pretty gnarly. So I go with some guys, another great white diver. He's another good friend of mine, Ron. He's on Instagram. He's got a good one. He poor guy just medicates the hell out of himself as he gets on the boat, and then just goes to his room and has to sleep. He's literally green for the first 20 hours. But the dude loves it so much that, he just grits it out. And then once he gets there, he's fine. And then when they're pulling the cages, it's time to go. He's just popping his Dramamine and all, got the patch. Everyone rocks the patch and just, trying to tough it out again. But that just shows you the dedication of what people go through to get these photos, and then just like the love of it, man. Even if I know people who go, I mean, everyone brings a camera, but every trip, it's not with photographers. A lot of times it's just enthusiasts. I mean, I'd say majority of the people are enthusiasts, and they're there not to create content, but just to be there. I feel envious half the time. Sometimes I'll go in. It's rare, but sometimes I'll go into the cage without my camera at all, just to kind of be with them. And I've had some very incredible moments. I had this one, I didn't have my camera. It actually run out of battery, so it forced me to get out. And so I got out, and I was just like, it was a really sharky time. And I was like, there was no one else in the cages. And I was just like, I got to get back in. So I got back in, and I lay on the bottom of the cage completely, and I could kind of put my head out of the corner. And there was this one, what's his name? Who was the chap that died in the Porsche accident? Who's in
Paul Walker?
Yeah. So the shark's named Paul Walker. And he was doing these big, well done. My bad. And he was doing these like big arcs around the cages, and then diving down underneath the boat, and then coming back up and coming real close to that corner of the cage. And he kept doing it over and over. And I think he was waiting. They get really smart sometimes when the bait comes out. They get fed up with being at the surface and not being able to get it. So they go and hide in the shadow of the boat until the bait gets thrown out, and then they dart up really quickly and they get the bait. So I think he was waiting for them to do that. But this time I think he just got more excited about me, like looking at him. And I spent it was almost a full hour of just him coming really close, going around, and like 20 seconds later coming up next to me and just staring at me. And I had no camera and I wasn't doing anything, but I was like, I'm almost confident. I told you earlier, they can feel your heartbeat. Mm-hmm. I think it's almost like a dog where can sense fear, can sense, and all I was doing to the shark was just being like, you're so fucking cool. Like as he's going around me, like that's all I was doing. Like and it was like, he was getting closer and closer each time until finally, like one of the last times, there's the light. Once the light it kind of sets behind the island, and we're so close to the island that, once it goes into shadow, it's pretty much they stop diving because the light's not very good for taking photos and stuff. Mm-hmm. So they'll stop diving. And then it just done that. So it was time to get out. And he just he did a couple more passes, and then he kind of swam off. And I went in, and I was like, man, that was incredible. And then I went and had dinner, and I came back out, and one of the shark wranglers was sitting outside, and he was sipping some coffee. And he's like, Walker's back. And I said, what? And I looked down, and he was still doing those rotations underneath the boat. No one was in the cages. But he was just coming up. Sometimes they like the clanging noise of the cage and stuff, but I was convinced that he wanted me to get back in and just sit with him for a little bit more. But
well, it sounds like a dog, like when you come home and it's just like, I'm so excited to see you. I'm just going to run in circles. Like, it's so like, thank God you're home.
Yeah, we call them puppies sometimes. They do these funny like underbites or overbites, whatever you want to call it sometimes. Actually, Nikki was talking about, she wants to set up an Instagram page just called Goofy Sharks, because we have so many like goofy, like when they make funny photos and we get funny photos of their faces or how they're like bent in funny positions. But they're characters, really. They are characters for sure, all of them.
Well, and it's funny too, because when you think of something that big, and again, legitimately prehistoric, it's hard to, I think for a lot of people, it's hard to be like, oh, well, they've got a personality. You know what I mean? Like, because obviously Paul Walker, like, he knew you were getting a kick out of even if it was just like, oh, I'm getting some kind of reaction. He knew that, so he continued to do that, where I don't think a lot of people would assign that attribute to something that, is how big are they, like 20 something feet? I mean, depending on.
I think he's 16 or so. Well, big enough. A shark the difference between a shark that's like 14 feet and 19 feet in the water when you're with them is not, like, you can't tell. When they're that close, it's just they're giant. And the thing that I always tell people, like, the real thing is the girth, like how big around they are. So like when they're coming straight at you, like I have this picture above my computer. I don't know if you can see that giant shark.
Yeah, it's so like the shark tail.
Yeah, it's like Bruce.
That's
So like, but when they're doing that and they're coming straight at you, it's a submarine. It's just so big around. It's hard. It's really hard to put it in words, kind of how it's not until you get out and on the Solmar V, that's the boat we go on. And I can't, that entire company, Pelagic Fleet, all those guys they're the best. But they have this really cool spot on the back of the boat. You can stand and you can look straight down on top of the cages. So there's not a bad seat in the house. I mean, that's one of my favorite spots to sit too, because then you can literally see down in the water and you can see the size compared to the size of the cage, and just how ginormous some of these sharks are. It's really amazing.
So are you, I mean, I'm obviously your 4-year-old's probably a little too young, and I'm sure your 7-year-old's a little too young, but are you aching for them to get a little bit bigger so you can be like, let's hop on in there?
Yeah, they both already want to do it, but yeah, it's can't wait. And they actually do trips where you can buy one, you get a free kids ticket thing. And I think it's a fantastic idea. I just they need to be a little bit older. So if because sometimes, dude, I'm in the cage, I'll be one of the first ones in, and at 7 a.m. and I won't get out until like 4 or 5 in the afternoon. Other than having to maybe get out for lunch or change batteries and stuff. So like I'm in there for a long time. So I just, my whole thing is just, I don't want them running around on the boat without us, kind of thing. So, but yeah, no, I definitely, and they're stoked. It's funny. We went, when school was in, they had one of those like book fair things at the school, and my oldest like, can we go buy a book? I'm like, yeah, sure. So we were at his back to school and we went in. And they have, I don't know if you've noticed, but if you go to like Target and wherever, kids shopping, if you look at kids' clothes, white sharks are everywhere. They're all everywhere.
Oh, dude, like baby shark. I've got a 2-year-old, man. She watched my mama shark, do all day. And I'm like, mama shark would take your head off. Well,
that's the funny thing. So there was photos, there's posters you could buy of white sharks, and they had books and stuff. So my oldest one picked up, he found like this journal thing that had a hologram shark on the front. He's like, can I get this? I'm like, yeah, sure. So went up to the counter, and like the lady, nice little old lady behind the counter, and she's like, oh, this is scary. And then like without skipping a beat, like I'm standing right behind her, and my son's just like, sharks aren't scary. And she's like, oh, okay. Well, this one. And then, so on my credit card or my debit card with Wells Fargo, you can put whatever photo you want on there. So, of course I put a shark photo on there. So I laughed when he said it, and I just handed her my card, and she's like, oh, I see what's happening here.
You're really into sharks.
I was just like, yeah, no, it's fine. He's right though. He's right.
Sharks aren't scary, but you should check out the box jellyfish. That thing will fuck you up.
Yeah. Cookie cutter sharks. Now that's a different story. That's the thing. People always like, are you scared? I'm like, no. And people like, are you scared of these sharks? I'm like, no, I'm not. Well, I'm scared of the things that attack these sharks. So, in Guadalupe, actually, there's these, and you should look it up if you get a chance, these things called cookie cutter sharks. One of the seals there, they'll go to the island, they'll have these like huge puncture wounds. They look like someone's just taken a shotgun and shot them in the side like with a slug. So it's like these, for lack of a better term, a cookie cutter. It's like perfect circle. And so they kind of like the jaws, they have these amazing rows of teeth, but they're like perfectly spherical. So when they bite, they spin really fast. And they're like these long tubes, and they just take a section, like they take
just a piece of meat out,
sucking wounds out. Yeah, like a perfect circle almost. So like the sharks will have them, and the mackerel around us, and they're kind of like piranhas where they hunt at night too, and they just apparently will just descend on you and really mess you up in the cage. So like you wouldn't want to get in the water around there, not because of the white sharks at nighttime, but it's at nighttime is when the cookie cutter ones apparently are around. Don't want anything to do with them.
Yeah. What are the ones? I think it's either the tiger shark or the bull shark. They're the ones that like really like the shallow water. Those are the ones that for me, I'm a little iffy on, because like there's that video that
go from salt to freshwater, which is terrifying.
Oh yeah,
they can swim up estuaries and all the rest.
Yeah, just hanging out in Lake Michigan and takes a piece of your calf. Well, you know what I mean? Because there's that video of that news reporter who's like, he's doing an interview and he's standing like ankle deep, and something just comes up and cuts him out at the ankle, and it's just those are the ones that are like, like I'll get in the ocean. I have fun swimming. I'm that dude that's always looking for jellyfish or being like, can I see my feet? Like make sure I know what's going on. Cause like, that's the crazy thing to me too, is that like, there is so much stuff in the ocean that like we don't know about. And like, and we know about sharks and they're gigantic. Yeah. So like,
and we still don't know that much about them. We know about them, but we don't know everything about them. On the coast here in California, I mean, so you don't have to go that far to see white sharks. You can go to Santa Cruz. There's an Aptos, it's called. It's a cement ship. And it's literally a cement ship, ship with got a lot of cement in it that's at the end of this pier. And they use it kind of as a natural water break. But it is shark. It's like a shark playground. I have a friend who's a firefighter, and he goes out there all like weekly on his boat, and he just sends me photos. And you like in the photo, it's a shark, and then the waves behind it, and people on the beach. So it's like if you've been in the water from in San Francisco area down to Monterey, like you've been close to a white shark and haven't known it for sure. Like they've been in the vicinity for sure during certain periods. And so it's like, people get really exasperated about that and all the rest, but like there hasn't been any attacks. Like people are still there, still doing their thing. They're not there for you. And that's why they're thinking maybe there's a nursery somewhere around there as well, because we're seeing a lot of new sharks. Actually, the last couple of years in Guadalupe, we've had a lot more brand new sharks come through, which is really exciting to get some new blood in there, but also knowing that there's new guys being made, which is fantastic. Because
you don't want to see them dwindle in population, or and it's. Again, I don't really know enough, but it's like people like illegally hunting them a problem.
Yeah.
I would imagine, like you said, like people want the jaws,
It's not so much the jaws as much as it's the fins. In China, it's a huge deal. Shark fin soup's still a big thing. So they kill, it is a staggering amount of sharks a year, and they just cut their fins off and throw their bodies back in the water. So it's really horrible, man. Then they I think 100 million sharks or something ridiculous like that. And it's all for these fins. So I can't, it'd be such a prize to have a giant white shark fin to them, I'm sure. So and I think a lot of I know Mako steaks, they use a lot of shark meat for filler for dog food and stuff like that. So there's a market for the meat as well. But I think the mainstay is, and the problem has been finning. And it's difficult because it's as these kind of, it's a slippery slope. When people start fishing in one area and it's okay, and then they start opening up a little bit more here and there, these ecosystems are really delicate, man. You look at what's happening in the Barrier Reef with it dying and stuff because of, global warming and whatnot. So it's just a little fluctuation here and there, it could be catastrophic. So people will be like, what's the point in being worried about these giant predators, getting taken out? And it's it's the food chain, man. They're keeping other populations in check. If we don't have them, then, sea lions run rampant and they start going after fish. It's everything's, it's an ecosystem, right? So it's all working in together, and we're great at messing that up.
Yeah, it's the circle of life. It's like the whole Lion King thing. It's like every animal, has its place, and that's how the balance is kept. You know what I mean? So it's I don't know, I've never thought about that, where it's we take out the sharks and then all of a sudden the sea lions are eating all the fish, and then you're like, hey, where's the fucking fish? It's we don't have any. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's crazy, man. Well, I don't know. It's super, super interesting. And, when you guys, so when you go out, how many days are you out at a time? Cause it sounds like you guys are just living on the boat. So
it's a bird sanctuary, the island itself. So you're actually not allowed to be on the island, on the side we're at. So we're on the boat for all 5 days. So it's a 5-day trip. It takes about a day to get there. And then you dive the whole. So you leave at lunchtime, and then you go kind of through the night, and then you get to the island about 10 or 11 the next morning. Then you dive that day, and then you go to sleep. You wake up the next morning, you dive that whole day, and then you go to sleep, and then you get up and you dive for 3/4 of the day, about in early afternoon, usually about 3 or 4, sometimes a little bit later. They'll pull the cages and then, steam back. So it's there's a lot of diving. Like there's a lot of hours, but you're on the boat the whole time. People like get kind of scared about that just for seasickness, but like I tell everyone else, it's completely flat. A couple occasions you'll have a weird shift, and current or swell will pull through the other direction. It happens very rarely. It's only happened to me once when I'm out there. It's not fun because the cages, like I said, being in the cages like that, it's not fun. It usually turns the water up, and the sharks don't like it as much, but 90% of the time it's completely flat. Visibility is amazing. We've been really fortunate the last 3 years in a row. It's been very sharky. So like I was saying, there's new sharks coming through. So it's, people say we're going to see a lot of sharks, and it's like it's Mother Nature. So you're going to see sharks, as much as I can say that, but like the last couple of years we've seen. It used to be if you saw like 10 or 12 individual sharks, that was a great trip. Whether they hung out for a while or whatnot, but like individual sharks themselves. And the last couple of trips we've had like 40.
Jesus.
So it's been like we've had some doozies the last couple of years, and that's knock on wood continues. But I just hope the island opens back up soon.
Yeah, man. I mean, it sounds like, I don't know. It's crazy too to think that like you ever step back and be like, oh, well, like I'm the line of defense, because that's what it seems like. It seems like, like you're the Steven Seagal for these sharks. You know what I'm saying? like
somehow, somehow. I mean, this is not, what is that Batman quote? He's not the hero. He's the hero we deserve, or he's not the hero we deserve, whatever it is.
Yeah, he's not the hero we deserve. Or not the hero we need. Where he's the hero we deserve, or something like that.
Yeah. No, and that's terrifying to say it out loud. But like it's left me kind of. I was saying that quote my buddy Mike had said, where we have an obligation kind of now to the sharks. We're granted this amazing opportunity to be around them and all that, but now we need to use it for some good, and that's where not as a scientific researcher and whatnot with conservation, but like I can still be a voice for them in that aspect. So, but dude, it's so hard to get facts correct these days anyway, with the misinformation that comes out,
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
The amount of people, the amount of money that rides on these big, fishing ventures and all that. And, Sea Shepherd and all those guys do a good job of just being a nuisance. And that's really all you can do. Cause it's, it's these governments, and very bureaucratic and whatnot, especially with these islands. So it's a tough thing to tackle, but I'm up for the fight, and I'm going to do my best to get the word out there. But in the end of the day, I think, it's kind of out of our hands, but we can make a stink, and hopefully someone pays attention to it. And, but it's, at this point, it's just, I'm leaving the people more educated to make more noise about it. But, I'll definitely share my opinion about it, but it's hard not to get, we were talking earlier about being positive the whole time. It's hard not to turn negative when that kind of stuff happens. So I'm just trying to paint the sharks in the best light possible and use that as my tool to kind of spread love with them. Well,
for sure. And I'm sure there's a part of you that, never was like, oh, I'll be taking up, I'm sure your first dive, you weren't like, oh, well, however many years from now, I'll be taking up this mantle where I'm like, I need to stop Chinese fishing boats. You know what I mean? Like it's gotta be like,
it has been thrust upon me quite a bit, but it's fine. And then, like I said, like it is a responsibility, I think, definitely to help educate that these sharks aren't man eaters and all that. That's what I thought it was going to be. Now it's slowly, hopefully not going to turn into saving their lives, because I thought we were kind of past that by now, but, I'm willing to help.
Well, that's awesome, man. And I think it's good that there is somebody like you, and obviously I haven't met Nikki, but I follow her I started following you, and then I saw her, and I was like, I gotta follow her too because this shit's awesome. So it's cool that if there was, you know, a group of people that like had to take up that cause or just, you know, kind of fell upon, I'm glad that it's, you know, someone who has the enthusiasm. You know, it's like I say, you didn't show up being like, I got to save these things. You showed up being like, oh man, this is super cool. And then that love kind of grew to that. So it's, you know, it's awesome. No, it's just cool, man. Like, you know what I mean? It's cool that it's somebody who has developed such a passion. Cause again, you know, in that interview I read, it was like, I read that it was something that like you had wanted to do, but like you had to save up forever and like didn't know if there was any place you could, and then you heard about this island. And so just it's like something to kind of stumble across. And then all of a sudden you're like, you know, the Commissioner Gordon of Shark City. You know what I mean?
No, I know it. It's definitely a daunting thing to shoulder. Like I said, but it's and not that I'm doing anything spectacular to really help the cause right now, but like I said, I think just being vocal about them not being man-eaters, I think is my number one kind of, that's what I feel like I need to be doing right now, especially with all these, you know, unfortunate incidences happening, you know, and whether it's in Australia or, you know, other places. I feel like helping to kind of right that. I mean, I wish everyone could just come experience it for themselves, because other than just it being an out-of-body experience, that rewiring, like I was talking about earlier, is like so beneficial, and it's ultimately it's priceless, like throughout the rest of your life. So like these sharks, and it's all because of these amazing animals. So it's like just the fact that just for some fin soup or whatever you want to call it, like these guys could just be gone. Like it's really unfortunate and really sad.
Well, it reminds me of like the dolphins, you know, getting caught up in like the tuna nets and stuff. It's like, you know, because we went to Dolphin Island, and you know, I always knew like dolphins were cool. You know what I mean? Like you see Flipper and stuff like that, and they're, you know, you see all these videos of them at SeaWorld, which, you know, you grow up and then you find out SeaWorld's fucking awful. You know what I mean? But like, we went deep sea fishing and like had no luck all day. But then as we were coming in, this school of dolphins just like showed up, and they were coming around the boat and like getting up real close, and like you could reach out and like touch them. And it was like, to this day, that's one of those things where I was just like, this is like one of the coolest things I've ever experienced.
Sure,
you know what I mean? So
sure.
like, yeah. I could liken it to it feels like it would be just like an intensity on such a crazy, like a similar intensity, but like on a crazy level when it's, you know, Paul Walker, or you know what I mean? Like just,
it's,
you know,
one of those, I liken it to like when people, you know, like as a kid you hear about the Statue of Liberty or like the Eiffel Tower or something like that, and then you are literally standing in front of it or standing next to it, and it's like this like weird thing where you're like, oh my God, there it is, it's real, like that's it right there, you know, or these. And it's like that on steroids, and it never ever gets dull. Like it's every time you're just like, that's a giant great white shark right there, and he's swimming right past me, and I'm like, I'm sharing the water with him right now, like he's right there. And it's definitely an out of body experience that where it's like there's those very few moments in life where you know you're alive. Like I said, like seeing a thing, or like my kids being born. Like I remember that being like, oh my God, this is real. Like that is real right there. And it's in this day and age, like we're so used to sitting, scrolling, you know, behind a screen, like not even interacting personally with people. Like it's so refreshing to have these kind of moments. That's actually why we ended up moving up here. I was in the airport flying back from a trip, and you know, bless their heart, there was this like group of, I don't know, it was some like high school girls sports team. There was like a basketball or something, I don't know. They're sitting next to me and they're eating their food they got, and I'm sitting there just going through, you know, starting to cull images down and find stuff and organizing files for when I got home. And they were talking about I can't even remember what it was about. It was, I think, The Bachelor. It was something that just didn't mean anything, like whatsoever. And we have these conversations all the time, and like it's totally fine. They can like whatever they want. But I was just like, I was listening to like what was important to these young girls right then. And I mean, I'm taking a snippet. I'm painting with a very broad brush here, but you know what I mean.
Right.
It was like the straw that broke the camel's back, and they were just going on and on about this, and I was just like, oh my God, I can't, like, this can't be it. Like, we can't just be like, just consuming, and then, and not, living a full life, and it's very easy to just like get on with it and just to do the routine, get up 9 to 5 and take your kids to the daycare and go to school and pick them up from daycare and make dinner and go to bed and do it again the next morning. And it's like, we all do that. And we were doing that, and we still do that to some extent. I mean, having a schedule and all that, it's not a bad thing, but you know what I mean by just like, it becomes all consuming, and then you blink, and the next time you're 60 years old and you're living on a pension or whatever you've got, and you can't travel, and the woulda couldas start coming out, so it's like,
you're like, what the fuck did I do all this for? Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's why I literally called my wife right then. It's like, do you want to move? Like, can we, let's, she's wanted to live, she's wanted to farm and all that for a long time. So and we just had this perfect opportunity to buy a place up here and had land, and she jumped at it. And we both, being a photographer and you kind of have to be around where the photos are. So it was a tough conversation for all involved and for her, but we did it. Our companies were cool with it, and thank God, man. Like, it's worked out.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I think that's the other thing too about being a photographer. And I don't even want to say being a photographer, but I want to say being a talented photographer, is that there's beauty in, I mean, there can be beauty. There's beauty to be found in anything. But
sure.
do you have the eye? Do you have the vision? Are you able to see it in a way that and capture it in a way that brings that out? So I mean, I'm sure like was a challenge of that at least something that was like, okay, well, I'm in a completely different environment now. So like,
still is. Because I had my go-to spots around me where I used to go and shoot all the time for sure, that I'd know, like there was this amazing open kind of field area where I'd see coyotes and all that near my house where we used to live in Livermore. And it's a beautiful spot, the whole area there, like the weather. But I mean, I'm an hour from Tahoe here, but I've just been, so like beauty is around me for sure. But I've definitely found myself now being, like the hummingbirds is a good example. Just looking in your backyard, like anyone can do that. You can set up a bird feeder. Like even if you don't even have a backyard, you can set a bird feeder up and shoot birds. Like you can do that kind of stuff. And it's not so much, I don't have a huge love of hummingbirds. I think they're badass and they're amazing little animals, but like it was mainly I knew I could create an image doing that kind of stuff, and I knew I could do it differently than someone else. Just like I thought I could do it differently. So you have to try, right? So you could have been like, oh, well, this is dumb, but I ended up liking pretty much what I was doing. But you can do that with anything. It doesn't have to be birds. It can be, like you said, the trick is, like I have a lot of friends who are very talented landscape photographers, and they'll get up hyper early in the morning and go off and shoot the Golden Gate Bridge or whatever, but they shoot the same thing over and over again. Or if they don't shoot the same thing, they're literally in a line with 30 other photographers that morning shooting the exact same thing. So it's like, it's one of those things where you kind of have to, if you really want to be a photographer, like that's really, really difficult to make a name for yourself doing that kind of stuff, because those objects and those scenes have kind of been shot now. Like,
oh yeah,
I'm not saying you can't do it differently, but it'd be very tricky to do it so someone just goes, oh my God, look at that, I've never seen that angle of the bridge. And it's maybe that's a challenge that I just threw down to someone, but it's a lot easier to take a completely inanimate object and come up with something completely different, your own, and people are going to take way more. I think you're going to climb a ladder a lot faster by doing shit like that than you are, doing what everyone else is doing. I mean, that's a dumb thing to say, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like my sister-in-law, she is a photographer, and she does like wedding photos, and she did our engagement photo. Shout out to Good Day Photography. But one of the things that I think is one of the things that I found interesting. My wife was pregnant, so we did like our maternity photos.
Yeah.
And we're standing in a field, and it doesn't feel like it's anything like magical. Right. It's like, all right, well, put your hands on her belly this way. And I'm like trying, I'm a fat dude, so I'm trying to like fucking suck in, So I'm like, these, I automatically think any picture with me in it, it's going to like drop the quality by like 10 points. So I'm just like, oh, these aren't going to be good. And then you get them back and you're like, oh shit. Like these are like, it's like, it's crazy. I think, and again, it's something that I think that you do very well, like with the way that you color your photos, the angles. Like my favorite one of yours that I've seen is you're underneath, and it's almost in like a black and white, but there's a little bit of, it's very much like coming from the depths looking up. And so I just like to be able to take like a normal moment and then be like, how can I turn this into something special when you see it is, it's a gift that like, obviously a lot of people don't have, or everybody would be, everybody would be photographers, you know what I mean? So,
and that's another thing. Like, I appreciate that, but like everyone being photographers, we kind of touched on that earlier, like everyone having a camera and becoming a photographer, and people, I remember when it first really started becoming I don't know if it's it's the right word for it, but like everyone, consumer cameras started coming down in price. People were able to pick up a camera that could take a good quality image. That doesn't mean that it was, used correctly, but at least like it was, or correctly, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't, because people, there's that thing. People think by buying a very expensive camera, you're going to take very good photos, and that couldn't be further from the truth. So and from day one, I've said this when people go like, are you threatened by other people, like this influx in photographers? I'm like, absolutely not. Like if anything, that's driving innovation. It's making more products. It's flooding the market with more money. Like it's a good thing. Like I think you're on your way out as a photographer if you are threatened by that. And another thing that people get, I used to be coming up, people would not like to share their process, like, or tell you what camera they used or how they shot that. Like I couldn't be further from that if I tried. I love teaching people how to use their shit, because like otherwise it just sits on the shelf and you fall out of love with it and you don't want to do it anymore. And it's just like, I love explaining to people, I love explaining to people how, I love explaining to people that like the gear that they have on their shelf is just as capable of doing what I do, but there's just, they have to go out and use their camera. Like it took easily 500,000 photos until I felt comfortable in what I knew about a camera. So it's just like, you just got to keep clicking, man. Like, for a long time, I just drove around with my car, in my car with my cameras, and it was just like any opportunity I had to shoot anything, I would just do it. And 9 times out of 10, it didn't work out how I thought it was going to, but I did learn along the way on either what to do or what I should have been doing. So it's just one of those things. Like you really, like anything in life, you just really got to want to do it, but you really got to do it.
Well, I think that's a really good,
go out and do it all the time.
Well, I mean, I think that's a really good way too, when you talk about like, because I'll tell you what, man, like I bought a decent camera, but I can take just as good of a blurry picture on a decent camera as I can on my eye. Like, I learned that real quick. I was like, oh shit, decent camera does not mean decent photographer. But I mean, I think, if you're driving around like, and you're thinking about, okay, 20 minutes ago it was overcast and now it's like, how do I adapt to that? Or like, hey, I'm shooting this and now I'm, sure, I've stopped here and I'm shooting. So what does my frame rate need to be at? Things like that. Like, it seems like if there's a way that you want to learn how your camera works, like quickly, like get in the car and just be like, hey man, shoot all day.
You can, or just shooting in the car. Like it's super bright outside and you want to expose inside the car. Like practice changing between the two of those. It's, you can take as many photography classes as you want, like I said, and you can get the knowledge behind it without actually going out and doing it. It's completely different. Like shooting hockey was a very challenging thing to do because inside a stadium, I don't know if you've ever tried to take a photo with other than your cell phone inside of a stadium, it's like the lights are strobing, so you can't shoot over a certain frame rate or all the screens go black. You've got to, like the ice itself is reflecting a shit ton of light, so it's super bright. But like to expose everything else, like the stands become dark if you have the ice exposed, right? So it's like you have got to know your camera inside and out to do. I mean, it doesn't have to be NHL hockey; it could be any kind of inside. Shooting weddings is the same way.
Your kid at a basketball game, yeah.
Everyone can but so you have to have a good grounded knowledge of how a camera works, but then also you have to put your own spin on it and journalistic or stuff. Like their photos are incredible, so it's hard not to depart art into that kind of thing. That's where the art comes from, I think. Otherwise it's just anyone could do it, like you said. It's just an algorithm. You're just plugging in A and B, and you get C out of it. But it's where the magic happens is like in Guadalupe, like you said, using the water reflection. I mean, you're never going to take the same water reflection twice. So using that to your advantage and helping in the composition and color and all that kind of stuff, particles. A lot of people get pissed off in underwater photography when you get little micro bubbles in, or you get a fish in there, and like, I would have liked it if all that stuff was out, but like, there's no point bitching and moaning about it. You got to help, use it, and then your images can become a hell of a lot more compelling too. You get cool, like out of focus elements, and I'm maybe having a positive attitude is another thing to say.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like taking a picture in a forest and being pissed that there's a tree. You know what I mean? It's like that's you're in their world. You can't be like, excuse me, fish, but can you stop right there? It's not like you're taking a picture at the airport. You know what I mean?
Oh, there's a shark right there. What are you doing?
Yeah. Well, I just, I want to let you know, man, I really appreciate you coming in and hanging out. And, I was telling my wife, I started this podcast because I wanted to talk to people who were passionate about what they did, and people who put their heart and soul into their projects, or people who just do, have unique experiences or do, crazy shit. And again, like finding your Instagram, I was like, oh, this dude does like checks all the boxes. So I feel like sitting down with Euan is like the reason this kind of conversation is the reason that I started doing this. So I just wanted to say thank you for coming in today and hanging out. And I did want to ask you, I mean, obviously you've got your Instagram, which is at Euan Art. We'll link that up. We'll link up Be a Shark, and I'll link up the Euan Art website. But is there any other place that you think people should go to check out your work, or is there any organization in particular that you think people should check out as far as the conservation element? Just anything else that you feel like people should know about?
I think I would, there's a lot of conservation stuff. I defer. I think there's a couple other Instagram accounts I think people should check out. I think Nikki's, and then there's a Great White Diver. I think it is Ron's. I need to look it up, but I can let you know, and you can, if you don't mind adding it to the other ones, would be great.
No,
too.
Of course.
Nikki's a great, she's an open book for all that kind of stuff. So she'd be a good person. Mike Coots is another one everyone should definitely go check out. Rodney Fox in Australia, he's another incredible shark photographer. Some very, very talented people doing some really awesome stuff around sharks. And I really encourage anyone who's at all interested in sharks to give us a shout, check us out. Even if you're slightly nervous and you just want one of those real moments like we were talking about before, and you might need it for a plethora of reasons in your life, it's definitely worth checking out. I think it's an experience that you really can't pay for, and in anything else. Like it's one of those just absolutely, it's a priceless kind of experience. But for a day, just do it and just know what it's about, and then, or just have the realization embedded in their head immediately, just as I said this. But like, it's one of those things you really got to experience for yourself. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk more about it with you. I've had a ball. It's been awesome.
Awesome, man. Well, again, I really appreciate it. And maybe, once you guys get a couple dives in, if you ever want to come back with Nikki, I'd love to have both you guys on and talk about it. I mean, I've had a really good time, and I'd love to have you back if you guys ever want to come on together. So.
Absolutely, dude. That'd be great.
Cool. All right, man. Well, I will let you, we'll wrap it up. Do you mind sticking around for me after we wrap things up here for a second?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, that is episode 26. So I just wanted to say a very special thank you to Mr. Euan Rannachan for coming on. Again, check him out at Euan Art. We'll link everything up. Check his photography, his fine art out at euanart.com. We will see you guys next week. And again, thank you for hanging out. Alrighty.